the mist. That's the final result that we're going for. So let me show you how we had this.
A second editing. Now that's very important because now if I right click edit and edit Adobe Photoshop CC, you want to make sure that you don't edit original, because if you edit original, you lose all the double processing. You want to go to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustment. This is going to create a new TIFF file with the double processing that has been done. So that's very important. And now, out of nowhere, in Photoshop, mesdames et messieurs, we are going to create some mist, some little morning fog. We're going to cheat, and that's what Photoshop is for, is to cheat, right? So, first thing first, it's pretty simple process. First thing is we create here. So once we have the empty layer, I'm going to call this, we're going to call this fog or mist. All right. So first thing first, we're going to go to filter, render clouds. And oh, one step I forgot to show you is you have to make sure that your white is the foreground color and black is the background color. If it's not, you have to press the D key for default and then the X key to put the white as the foreground color. So D for black, black is going to be the foreground color and white the background color. D for default and then X to get the white color. Now it's not really important for that one step, but for what we're going to be doing, it is important. So once you've got that fog, you put this in screen mode. And what screen mode is going to do is that you see anything which is black is going to become transparent. Anything which is white is going to become not transparent. So we start seeing the fog. I mean, it looks kind of weird, but we start seeing it. Next, you're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And that's what's just going to make a blur. And I usually do around between 40 and 50, depending on the resolution of your photo. You got to give it a try, but I'm going to go for 44. Click on OK. Then I'm going to, with the zoom tool, pressing Z for zoom tool, pressing Alt to unzoom, I'm going to look from very far away the photo, and then I'm going to press the most used Photoshop shortcut of all time, Command T or Control T. That is the free transform. It's really something that any Photoshop user use a lot. Okay, Command T, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to perspective. On perspective, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click the right corner and click it to the right. That's going to give like a little perspective to this. Then I'm going to right click again and I'm going to go to distort. And now with distort, I can take this middle thing and get it just above my horizontal line, above the lake, something like this. All right, then I'm going to press enter. So that's my basic mist. It looks amazingly real, doesn't it? I'm just kidding. So now I'm going to create a mask. I want all this to be masked out and I just want to bring a little bit of it. So I'm going to press the Alt key or the Option key on my keyboard and click here on creating a mask. That's going to create a black mask. The result of a black mask is that anything which is on that layer fog does not disappear. But if I have, oh, that went away again. If I have white as my foreground color and I press B for brush, okay, and then I'm going to make sure that I use a rounded, very, zero hardness, big, a nice size brush. Now make sure that flow and opacity is around 30%, so that when you brush, I'm not going to brush pure white, I'm going to brush just a bit of gray. I'm just bringing back, as I brush, the fog, okay? Usually there is a bit more in the background. Okay, I'm going to avoid the trees a little bit. So and if you want to make your brush bigger or smaller, you just press the Option or Alt and Control key, and you click your left mouse click and you hold, and it's going to make your mouse bigger or smaller. Just going to add some fog here, fog there. Now you can add some on the trees, like I can lower the opacity even more. Just add a little bit here on the trees, but not so much. You want to be gentle here because we want to give the illusion that the fog is going behind the trees. So, all right, so boom, 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 27%. I'm just adding a bit of fog here. We are fogging the fog. Okay, it's a lot cheaper than using a fog machine. Because if you have to use a fog machine to take that one photo and put fog all over the lake, believe me, that's going to be a very expensive photo. Okay, so now that's sort of like a basic fog. Let's look at it. It's already looking quite of cool. Before, after. If you think it's a bit too strong, you can a bit lower the opacity. It's going to make it even more real. But I usually do that at the end. So that's my basic fog, okay? Now what I'm going to do is press Command J to duplicate the layer that we just did here. And then I'm going to press Command T again, the famous Command T, to free transform. So, and I'm just going to make this a bit tighter, somewhere around here, because the top of the fog, far away, it kind of always looks like that. But you can see it's too neat. So I need to make a better mask. So I'm going to click on the mask, and this is where it's important that white is the foreground. You click on the gradient tool, and on the gradient tool, you make sure that you have the first one, which is foreground to background. Click on OK, and make sure instead of having the linear gradient that you have the 1, 2, 3, 4th one, which is called the reflected gradient. The way the reflected gradient works is that if I draw, I'm going to press Shift to make a very straight gradient. If I draw just a very little line, what it's going to do, I'll show you on a mask. By clicking Alt, I can show you the mask. It's going to make everything black above what I drew. Underneath what I drew, everything's going to be black, and in between is going to make a very nice gradient. So it's perfect. It's just going to make like the top of the fog appear, you know, kind of cool. Now, the problem is that we have to take that out. So take the B for the brush back, make sure that black is your foreground color, because now when you press black and you just erase little by little that line on the tree there, so that it's still behind there. So now it starts to be foggy. Oh, on the tree there. That looks very unreal. So we still have the black brush, you know. I mean, fog goes everywhere, so but you know, let's make it a bit real. Let's be real, guys, you know, come on. Okay. So this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. And so usually I lower even more the opacity. I just want a little line here. And what I usually do is I duplicate it, press V, and just make one just a little bit under, maybe. And maybe even lower even more the opacity of the second one. Something like that. Okay, now to add even more dimension to my fog, I'm going to create, well, I'm going to go back on this layer, press B, and make sure it's not on the tree. Okay, that's cool. Then I'm going to create a new mask, again, a new layer, I'm sorry, that I'm going to call Fog 2, the return of the fog. Okay, and on this fog, I'm going to take B for brush, make sure white is the foreground color. Make sure your opacity is pretty low, like 23, and your flow 23. You want fog is, you know, very foggy. And now it's going to get it a bit more complicated, but really quickly, we're going to go into the brush engine, and I'm going to use the brush number 14. 14. If you don't see it, it's what's a brush that's good for making fog. If you don't have it, you can just click here, click to reset all locked settings, and it's usually going to put back that thing. Okay, so, but we have to do a few things before it looks like fog. So first thing first, I'm going to make a big size. Second thing, I'm going to make spacing around 50. What spacing is doing is that now it starts to look like a fog a little bit, you see? And then I'm going to go to shape dynamics. And shape dynamics, I'm going to make sure that my angle jitter is at 100%. What that does is that every stroke is going to have a different angle, okay? Then I'm going to go to size, maybe jitter a little bit, and transfer. I like transfer. What transfer does is that every brush stroke does not have the same opacity. So I'm going to use the opacity jitter. You see, if, maybe put it around 20 or 30. So I repeat, on brush tip shape 14, size make it very big, you know, depending on the resolution of your photo. Spacing around 50, yeah, something like that, doesn't really matter. Not like this, for sure. It's going to be spaced out, like something like that. Shape dynamics, make sure angle jitter is 100%. Angle jitter is going to make every brush stroke turn have a different angle, right? And then transfer is going to make around opacity jitter around 26. It's going to make all the brush, you know, very different opacity. Every brush stroke is going to be different. Okay, so we can get that away. And now let's create some brush. So I'm going to make it a bit big, like this, like 432 pixels, and I'm brushing. But you can hardly see anything. The reason you can hardly see anything is I have 23 opacity and 23 flow. That's like very low. So I'm building the fog, but that's how a fog should be. You know, it should really go gentle because it can go really bad. Now, okay, all right. So check it out, before, after, I'm just adding fog. Okay, maybe let's boost up a bit the flow and a bit the density. Maybe I was a bit cheap on this one, you know. All right, well, that's too much, Pumsy. I'm gonna undo it. No, you just have to take the time, you know, you have to build it up, you know. Because if it's too much, it's too much. And we don't want too much. We want to do as much realistic fog as possible. Okay. All right, and so then you can zoom out a little bit. It's always good to sort of zoom out, you know, go take a coffee and come back and see if it's too much. So that's the before, that's the after. I'm maybe gonna lower the opacity so that it makes us better. And you know, in true life, fog would not be like